Good evening and welcome to the August 7, 2024 Comprehensive Plan Committee. My first order is to call this meeting to order and to note that we do have a quorum. So, that being said, second agenda item is approval of minutes from previous meeting. That would be the June 5th meeting. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
And a second? In a second, all in favor? All right. So, third would be public comment. Anyone from the public that would like to speak, if you just go to the podium, let us know your name and your address, and then you are allowed to speak. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
Just John.
Hi, John. And so anyone else from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public comment. Old business. So I'm going to turn this over to Kayla. She's going to give us a rundown on the a survey from the Election Day pom-pom.
Yes. So on our last election day in June, we conducted another pom-pom survey. And the question was asking, what would you like to see the Jordan Small Middle School be utilized as once it's returned to the town? We had 1,000 basically responses, a little over that. So I think we said maybe pick 3 was probably the general rule. So I think it was actually a really good turnout for that. These seem to be very popular. So the highest winner, I guess you should say, was a community/senior center. That got 303 votes. After that, recreation, just as a general category, at 258. Library at 171. And then the last 3 were town offices, daycare, and then other. Those were all 139, 104, and then 42 others. For the others, it was all of the above were some of the responses received. Sell it, hold on, pickleball, food pantry, go back to being a school, got 7 answers. Swimming pool at 4, broadcast studio, housing for elderly, a fire station, and a sober house. So I think fairly all, we probably are not that surprised by the responses. And the winner would be a general community center.
Thank you, Kayla. Any other committee comments on those numbers? Or
What was 2 and 3 again, Kayla? Sorry.
Recreation and a library. And I wasn't there to collect the responses that day, but Peter, I think you mentioned, or someone mentioned, there was a lot of surprise that the school was closing. Is that correct?
That was correct.
Okay. Which I think is also interesting.
When Frank and I were doing it, people were like, "What are you talking about? They're like, which school? Like the one you're standing in right now." So there was definitely a lot of surprise that news was.
I was only surprised, shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just as an interesting side comment.
Thank you. Well, my comments are, number one, thank you, Kayla. You are the pom-pom queen. These surveys, though, the ones that we've conducted now at the town elections, are certainly not scientific. We don't employ people to analyze the results. But the questions are pretty straightforward and I think are reflective of what's going on. Just to add on to what Kayla said, 117 pom-poms, each respondent had 3 pom-poms. That means we got 339 respondents, which I got to tell you, based on some of the survey responses we've had, that's another success for these unscientific surveys that basically are just confronting the citizens as they leave the polls and ask them some simple, direct questions. What I would say is I just did a quick rundown on the math. So community center, senior center got 30% of the total votes. Next was recreation that got 25% of the votes. After that, it was the library that got 17% of the votes. Town offices got 14% of the votes. Daycare got 10% of the votes, and all others got 4%. And along with what Kayla said, there was like one response from a citizen that said, sell it. There was one response, I believe, or there were 9 responses that basically just said all of the above. So their response was, we want all of these things. And I guess, so lastly, my sense is that one of the things that stimulated us going forward in doing this was the fact that North Star mentioned, we'd like to have some sense of where the community is as far as what to do with Jordan Small when it comes back to the town in 2027. And so we just decided as a committee, well, here's an opportunity at the election to get a large number of individuals surveyed. And I agree with Kayla. I don't think there's any real surprises here. I would just say that this is unscientific in regard to the fact that, among other things, 2 of the choices already exist in that building. So recreation, we've got a kind of a state class gym for a middle school when we built it. And so I guess the question would be, why would you not say we're going to use this for recreation? We're going to take this gym and turn it into office space?
A swimming pool.
There was a swimming pool.
Yeah.
There was one vote for a swimming pool. I heard that. And then the other one is that we already have a library. It already exists. And it's down in the village center. I'm getting the sense from what we've looked at on the committee is that we want to promote the village. So the idea of removing the library from the village might be counterproductive. I don't know. We'd have to see what the citizens say on that. But certainly there already is the library that exists there. So as far as converting that space, once again, it would seem crazy to take a space that's been already built for a library and turn it into something else.
Further comment on the library, however,
Yeah.
though, is that they do have a very small space, and when they try to hold events there, it's very difficult for them, and they have to move a lot of the book stacks themselves. So it creates a lot of extra labor. So I know we already have one and want to direct traffic there, but we could use a library twice the size of the one that we have.
Sure.
That was the
Easy.
response I was getting from people when
Yeah.
they talked about the library. They wanted a bigger library. They didn't feel the library in the village was anywhere near adequate to do the programs they're trying to do now and in the future.
Yeah.
If you go in there on Tuesday morning when they have their bridge group, it's packed. I mean, literally, you can't walk around and there are so many tables of people sitting around playing cards. And they don't have enough room to do the cribbage one they wanted to do with it. So it was a matter of, we needed much more space than we have now.
Well taken. Okay, so I'll go over kind of this idea. We had some back and forth, Kayla, myself, and Kate from North Star, as far as where this meeting should be going. And I think we arrived at the conclusion that we needed to spend the bulk of the time reviewing the draft comprehensive plan, the first draft of it. I think that the sense was that this would be a committee-directed discussion with North Star here to assist us and support us as we need it. But my plan going forward would be this one, that we post the draft plan so that people can see it, the committee can see it, and that we basically go, as Kate mentioned, had there been enough feedback from this committee on that draft plan, what you would have done at this meeting would have been to basically group things by theme according to what the committee felt needed to be edited, changed, or whatever. And that then, I believe my sense was that North Star would then have led this meeting. But there was a sense that we have not received or North Star hasn't received enough feedback from this committee as far as the edits or changes to the current draft. Therefore, what we're going to do is take this opportunity, committee willing, to basically go through those different themes on the draft, with North Star here to be able to make those edits as we do them, so efficient use of time, so that we're ready for September, when what we do is, or excuse me, is it? Yeah, September, we do a review of the second draft. I believe that's kind of how Kate plotted out how we were going to proceed. So without objection, I would go forward with that. Any comments or objections to that process?
No?
No? Okay, so what I've done is just put together two things. And not knowing what we would have, my expertise with computers would be, I did it the old-fashioned way. But sometimes it's a little easier if you
Oh, nice.
basically have the paper in front of you to do it, because I'm kind of old school there. So this first thing I'm passing around is the timeline, because one of the first edits was in the introduction, and it was that, well, the timelines aren't exactly right. I think there's been some confusion as to whether this committee started when we had our first meeting in August of 22, or if we started when North Star basically was contracted the following spring to be our consultants. So I'll throw that out as kind of the first edit. The second thing I'm passing around are basically the edits from, as of this morning anyway, everything that's been edited to the plan by the committee, sans the punctuation and/or remove this word because it's an extra word. So any of the simple edits are not included in this, okay? So I guess I would start with, if we could get that plan up on the screen, that would be terrific. But I would say just to get going and to not delay things at all. The reason I handed out the timeline was both to check it against the information in the draft, and also just to give you some pause, and you don't have to go through it all right now. Everything we've done since August of 2022, okay? So as far as the first edit under acknowledgements, I would ask, and once again, this is just an ask, I just need a consensus from the committee. Do we want to acknowledge, thank Brad McCurtain and/or Don Willard for their participation in this committee? Thoughts?
Nothing wrong with doing that.
I'd agree.
Doesn't seem to be a problem. So that'd be the first edit. Just include in the acknowledgements somewhere that just says, thanks to Brad McCurtain and Don Willard. Okay, good. Do we want to describe ourselves as a steering committee? I don't have any opinion on this, so, but there was an edit, so.
Yeah, is that just common language? I've just never heard of us referred to that.
That was actually a typo on our end, so
Okay.
I think you've been calling yourselves the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and I think we'll stick with that.
Okay.
That's what they were appointed
Yeah.
as by the
Yeah.
select board, yes.
Nothing ground shaking so far. All right. Our first meeting, I'll just reiterate this, of this committee was in August of 2022, and if you look at the timeline, actually in June was when the select boards appointed us in this role. Okay. That being said, page 3, introduction. What I have as an edit is the community engagement should include department head interviews and polling at local, state, and national elections. Because personally, I was at all 3 of the pollings. I think that the amount of information I gathered from actually talking to the people was extremely valuable. And so I think that the state should know that we did that. Thoughts?
That would be in the intro, Pete, yeah.
So yeah, in the introduction, basically, it's stating, you know, the different community engagements we were in, but it didn't mention the department head interviews and the polling at local, state, and national elections.
Yep.
I think also, you know, from what I've been able to research, it's about 50-50 as to whether the committee or the consultants or a combination of both actually conduct the department head interviews in the town. And I'm extremely proud of this committee having gone out and said, no, the committee will do that.
Yeah.
We learned a lot more, I believe, doing it that way than if we had done it in combination or if we had left it to the consultants.
I think that's a good add.
Yeah. Okay, so without objection, we'll add department head interviews and polling at state, local, and national elections. Moving on. Raymond Today, page 5. And I think this is just a little confusion. Inventory chapters based on data collection over the past 10 to 20 years. So the edit was to say, don't say 10 years, say 10 to 20 years. My understanding in looking at this is that this is just kind of a form of confusion. I believe that the term 10 to 20 years has been used to describe how long a comprehensive plan should be effective, how it's going to affect it. So as far as us looking down into the future, it's pretty common for comprehensive plans to say, we're looking at the next 10 to 20. Some I've read say 10 to 15. But the inventory chapters based on data collection was really just over the last 10 years. I mean, we didn't go back to 2010 to look at population necessarily. We looked at the last 10 years, or, I mean, I'm just guessing. I didn't really see the data completely.
Announcement and
I'd ask North Star about this. I think it's accurate to say that the data collection was over the last 10 years.
I think,
I mean, it's the decennial census is updated every 10 years, and a lot of times we use comparisons from 10 years ago with the data.
John?
yeah, the thought on that comment, I think that might have been mine, was that the last formal plan was '04, and we're 20 years out on that. And there was a kind of an interim update in 2014 or something. There was comprehensive plan activity, if I have that right. And so the 10-year reference is certainly appropriate. I was just thinking it would be nice to acknowledge that the comprehensive look, the last comprehensive look was 2004 in terms of a formal plan. But don't need to get hung up too much on that point.
What's the committee think? 10 years, that reasonable? Or do we want to include 10
I
to
kind of like the 20, because it is acknowledging that it's been 20 years. I don't know. I mean, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's kind of to me, it's like consider it, because it has been 20 years since we've updated it. So we're basically we're taking 20 years of what's happened with the town and we're reformulating a plan. But
I agree.
I won't lose sleep over 10
Yeah, how
years
about a
being
quick
in
show
the
of hands?
comprehensive plan.
10 years? 20 years?
Show my hand with the 20.
There you go. 20 years it is, 10 to 20.
Right.
Yeah, 10 to
right.
20 years. is-
Moving on. Also on page 5, Raymond Today, population. I can tell you, this one gave me a little heartburn, but maybe we can clarify it. The statement is basically that there's an increasing number of young families in town. And I know that there's a graph on that basically shows or suggests on the data as I looked at it, that there's a point where it intersects, where what we're seeing is in a certain age group, I don't know if it was 25 to 34 or whatever, that there had been a population increase in that, and that potentially that could suggest that there's younger families moving in. My sense is that in the population's demographics chapter, it really doesn't say that the population of young families is increasing. It says that it may. And I just wonder if that might be a little misleading as far as looking at the population demographics in there, as far as suggesting that Yeah, there's actually an uptick in the number of young families moving in. I tried to get some school data. That was harder than getting a change to the Constitution of the United States. So I don't know what that's all about. I even looked at their budget stuff because I would think somewhere in the RSU budget there'd be something about projections for population increase. But I'd ask North Star, what your sense is on this statement. Do you think it's strong enough to hold water to the general
I think
public?
if you're referring to that second bullet there, the second sentence where it talks about the percentage of residents over 65 has increased, I think that can be refined a bit more, just wording wise. So I think the trend is that we're seeing generally a higher percentage of people in Raymond that are over 65 that are staying there, aging in place, and then at the same time looking at that age graph in the population chapter, more younger families, like people in their 30s, mid-30s that are moving to town. So that definitely can get reworded.
Okay. As far as, is that page 5?
Yeah.
It is. Is there any more on that?
I had a
If you scroll down? Yeah.
comment on that same bullet. I
Yeah.
don't think my comments made it in, but it's probably my fault. So the but the I agree with you, Peter. I don't think that second part of that second sentence matches what we've talked about, and I think we could find a different way to extrapolate the data consistently between the first part of the sentence and the second part of the sentence to make it more clear as to what at the point we're trying to get across.
Is the discrepancy between what the second bullet says and what the first sentence of that paragraph below says? Aging population and increasing number of young families?
Yes.
Or do we?
I think it's just kind of the wording. When we're saying the population is aging, we've seen an increase in the older people, but there's also been an increase in young people. I think it's just the way it's worded.
Okay.
That's all. Because when I had to read it a couple times to be like, wait, what? What are they?
I
I think
understand what you're saying.
that's what it is. It's just a little misleading, right? Am I?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Like it's just yes, you can still see an increase in people in their 20s and 30s. Yes. But it's a much smaller increase. And I think we all understand that. It's just the way that it reads kind of throws you off a little bit.
We in agreement with that?
Yeah, just one more point would be, and this
Yes.
maybe is getting too into the statistics, but is it possible that there were a lot of people aged 50 to 64 that over the last 10 years have turned 65 in town?
I think that's a possibility. Absolutely.
I'd just be, like you were saying, I'd just be curious on the actual increase in young, quote unquote, families coming in when we're losing a school. Like, I know that's future, but it's just like, well, we're losing the school for various different reasons we don't have to get into, but it's just like, to me, the statement that we have a lot more young people moving into the town doesn't reflect what is actually going on in the town. So I just, like you, I'd be curious about the stat, if that's actually accurate before putting that in there. I don't know how you would find that stat. Is that, that school stat you were talking about, is that a stat we could potentially get from Wyndham to see what their?
I looked. I'm sure that it's got to be there somewhere. I just didn't find it. I don't know if that would be helpful or not. I mean, there's other factors that are involved as well, even in looking at the budget. I mean, I do know that the RSU is decreasing 2 teachers' positions. But once again, that can just mean larger class sizes. It doesn't necessarily mean that the population of the school's gone down. So
I think it would stand to reason that Wyndham is seeing a population increase in general. Therefore, I'm sure that their population of school-age children would increase. I don't think Raymond's, however, is. I think ours is either stagnant or slowly going down. I think
Going down.
I think that's my sense of it.
Of school-age kids.
Of school-age children,
Yeah.
yes. So school-age children are going down. The number of school-age children in Raymond are either stagnant or down. But Wyndham, it would stand to reason that they are going to see an increase because they do have a lot of developments They have,
Sure.
they have more development action than we have here.
Sure.
And one would just assume, I guess, that that would mean that there are maybe more children that will be there as well.
So I'm hearing a consensus that as far as the second part of that statement, that be deleted, or that we find another way to say that, that there is an increase in this age group. And I know that all of that breakdown is in your analysis.
Yeah, later on.
So you could just pull the numbers from that and just, say, the age group 25 to 34 or whatever.
It was 10% or whatever
yeah.
the number is.
Yeah.
It would be- throw the same statistic at it, or if it's available.
Yeah.
Then you're making two quantitative statements based on the data.
Okay, so we agreed on that. Looks good. Moving on. All right, so I'm going to draw a lot on, and John, listen up here. I'm going to draw a lot on the individuals that have real estate experience, but I'm going to tell you that on page 5, under housing, at least 6% of homes in Raymond are used for short-term rentals. Okay, I believe that's a guesstimate. I don't know that we track them. But at the very least, would it hurt to say at least 6% of homes in Raymond are used for short-term rentals, which remain unregulated?
I think an appropriate word could be currently, which are currently unregulated, because
Which remain currently unregulated. What do we think about that?
You know,
Rumor has it someone's wants to regulate it.
How are we defining short-term rentals? Is that year-round basis, or is?
No, I think that
like
most of what
putting a
most of what
camp
towns that I've seen or have investigated basically look at. I think in Portland it's 30 days. So if you're going to rent it for under 30 days, it's in Portland. I believe it's considered to be a short-term rental.
Short-term
Some
rental. could be-
condo complexes will call it like a 90-day or 3 months or less, or sometimes even 6 months or less can be kind of considered a short, if it's not a year-long lease agreement sort
I
of
guess
deal.
my question is, how many summer camps do we have that people rent out for a number of weeks during the summer? How do you tally that into it?
Tell you that it's a lot more than 6%.
I would think so.
Own the home, and you go to it a few, you spend a month
But-
there over the
but-
summer,
but
but
to
the
re-
rest of the time you rent it out. Is that what
To
you're saying?
remain focused, what I'm really asking in this edit is that we just make some statement of the fact as we know it. And the fact that we know is that as of now in the town of Raymond, short-term rentals, however you want to define them, are not regulated. That could be simply what some communities have done, which is they license them. Therefore, you have information, and if a neighbor or butter has a problem, they know who the owner is, they have the contact information, to something as restrictive as licensing fees and revenue streams and all that sort of stuff. I don't think we're at a point here where we're going to be discussing that, but simply to make the statement at the point in time when the comprehensive plan is finally voted in by the town, that we're telling everything that we know. It's just they're not regulated now, and that is an issue in many communities. I know it's been an issue in this community.
Do we want to specify even more that they're not regulated by the town or by the municipality, just to clarify?
Yeah, I struggle with that a little bit. I think that it's not true that the house that is being used for short-term rental hasn't seen a lot of regulation and inspection and approvals. So I would just worry that if we don't word it correctly as far as it's just not regulated, then possibly people would say, what, it didn't have to have the building code to be pass the building code in order to be a short-term rental. So I agree though that the wording needs to be correct.
Yeah.
Would something like a reference to the fact that to date there is no ordinance to manage short-term rentals?
Right. So if this helps at all, a state like New Jersey will regulate them. So you have to have a CO, just like you would have a CO for like a permanent residence. You have to have the CO for the short-term rental. A short-term rental could be anything from a day to could be a week. And I think the short-term rental, when people think of it now, they think of like Airbnb and that kind of thing. So You're absolutely right. It's not regulated by, I don't think it's regulated by, I mean, it's not by the state. It's obviously not by our municipality, but where do you want to put that? It's like, it's not regulated by our municipality, or do you want to go up higher? It's not regulated by Cumberland County,
No.
or do you want to go up to the next level would be state? So
I think something that might make sense is it currently doesn't require regulation isn't required for the town or for the state.
How
And maybe
about
that's
regulation
the
is
distinction we make.
not, how about regulation is not currently required?
Sure.
Factual.
Or which are currently unregulated by town ordinance.
Whoa, there we go.
I like that by town ordinances. I mean, that's basically saying that we
Raymond.
as a town of
Yeah.
Raymond, are not, we don't have an ordinance controlling the number of them. And since we're kind of picking this to death, I kind of would like to say estimated 6%, because we literally have no clue.
We really
And
don't.
even if you look on an Airbnb listing and you search Raymond, you're going to come up with Airbnbs in Casco, in Naples. I mean, it's the whole surrounding area. So if we're going to
So,
pick at
Kayla,
this.
I agree. How many, how would
I don't
we
know.
know if it's not regulated, licensed, or another
Yeah,
racetrack?
this is
How
the-
would we know how many homes are?
What percent?
It's a complete estimate, that's 6%.
Right, we should take out the estimate. There's an unknown amount of homes in Raymond are being used for short-term, or undocumented, or however it wants to say it, but I don't think that, it's true, it's at least 6%, but I know it's way more than 6%. I think that number should be taken out, because it's, the way I'm reading it now, it's a little misleading. It's like, oh man, that's not a whole lot.
That's not a lot, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's 180 homes.
That was taken from AirDNA, which it is an estimate. So it's
But they get their data based on licensing databases, right? And from municipalities. So if you don't license, if you don't regulate, how do you know? I guess that's the question we're asking.
Right, they might know if there was a year-long lease, but they wouldn't know if there was somebody renting their home out for 3 days.
I don't want to put words in Sam's mouth, but I think that they also will monitor active listings at short-term rental sites. It's not just relying on municipal licensing, because as you know, many towns do not require municipal licensing. So it is an estimate. I think that if you feel in your gut that 6% is just grossly too low, I think the way I look at that is at least 6% of homes in Raymond are estimated, to Kayla's point. And so if we leave it at that, that would, I think make it clear, we don't know the exact number, but if you feel somehow that is really, 2 or 3 times too low, then maybe we shouldn't put the number in. But I think based on the best available data that we had, we would say at least 6%.
So how many homes did we say when Raymond? There was 3,500? Is that what we were saying? I have a stat on that.
It says approximately 3,000 housing units
So,
in the line above that.
John, you said there were how many?
Just 3,000 times 6%,
180.
180. So
Oh,
that was my
I
quick
I
math.
thought you were on a.
I mean, if you think about looking at a map of the town, if you pull up Airbnb and look for something in Raymond, like 180 dots of properties is a pretty significant number. Like, I think it probably is, I mean, if we say it's at least that much, I think that's probably realistic. And maybe in our minds, we are thinking that doesn't sound like enough, but I think it's a good number. Like, I think it's a lot of homes. If you count the number of homes on the waterfront in town, I mean,
Can you say
Can't be much
according
more
to
than that.
this? Put it in there. According to this,
Sure.
6%.
It's
No,
not a
we-
made-up number. I mean,
Right,
you
we-
guys found it in the database.
We
right?
put the blame on somebody else.
Best-
Okay, is there a consensus on that?
yeah, I think just adding the estimated.
Yeah. And is as far as the statement about unlicensed, unregulated, currently unregulated, what do we think about that?
Currently how'd you say it,
I'd
Jackie? That was nice.
Which are currently unregulated by town ordinances.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah,
Is that good?
Yeah.
appropriate.
All right, moving on. Okay, under housing, Raymond's home median price has increased by 75% between 2010 and 2022. I guess I don't have a problem with that. I'm not sure exactly where that's directed, but it's historical data, and so I don't have a problem with it. I would delete what follows that, which is considerably lower than some surrounding towns that have seen increases over 130%. So my sense is that this suggests that Raymond's housing affordability in today's market is somehow better than surrounding communities. That's the sense I get in reading that. My idea, and once again I'll lean heavily on the realtors in the room, is there a significant difference in the cost of a house, the median cost of a house in Raymond as compared to Gray? I'm sure it's different in Portland, but is it that much of a significant difference? That would be my first question. And then the second one would be, even if that's true, we're talking about we talk about the percentages, and 75% of what? 75% of a community that has a median expense for a house of $200,000 versus their neighboring community whose median housing price is $400,000. These, what is the percentage telling us? Yeah, to me, it's more as far as affordability goes. Not. Thank you, John, for educating me on this. I believe it's not the affordability capital A, or maybe it's the other way around. It's the affordability small a, which means is it expensive to buy a house today to the point where you'd say it's not affordable? Yeah, I would agree with that statement. But affordable housing, the definition really is the HUD or State Housing Commission state statute that describes who qualifies for a low-income house loan, who can get some sort of subsidy because of their income. So there's two different affordabilities there. So anyway, I know that's a lot to digest, but basically, is it misleading at all to be kind of putting this in here and saying that some communities have experienced an increase of 130%, in Raymond for the last decade was 75%, and somehow that's better now, today.
I don't feel that statement is, because I like how it ends, current data suggests that it's not. So saying, hey, listen, this is a stat. It's showing that it's lower than the other areas around it. However, current data is suggesting that Raymond's housing affordability is not better. That I would say that without that very last sentence, I would agree with you. But tacking that on there, I think it's a very fair statement all the way through.
Other thoughts? State Housing publishes Maine State Housing, a very nice, basically chart that rates and gives you in years comparisons as far as what median houses have cost, the median cost in Cumberland County and throughout the state with individual towns. And so that's very helpful data. But the one thing I find most helpful in looking at it is their index. And their index is basically just a fraction that indicates, you're a 9 or a 0.9 or you're 1.1. And it's basically a formula, as I understand it, that's describing the affordability in a community from year to year. And I got to tell you, looking at Raymond and Cumberland County in general, but in Raymond over the last 5 years anyway, I think last year we were at anything below 1 is considered not affordable. And I think
Not affordable.
not affordable. And we went from like 5 years ago, we were a 0.9, and now we're somewhere around a 6.5. So I think that's pretty telling.
Our
on
affordability is
what
increased.
our affordability has decreased. And in comparison to area towns, I didn't see that they had an index that was any different from ours. So I'm just throwing that out there.
But you guys, North Star, I mean, you guys pulled that statistic from data somewhere, right?
Yeah, from Main State Housing.
Main State Housing. I mean, so that's a factual statement. The first part of the whole statement probably is
Oh,
factual.
yeah, and I'm not doubting the factual. I'm just saying that the first part of that, Raymond's home median price has increased by 75% between 2010 and 2022. But then it goes on to say, which is considerably lower, meaning at the time, that time frame, it was considerably lower than some surrounding towns that have seen increases up to 130%, which I don't doubt that there's data to support that as well. I guess what I'm asking, is that
Is that
germane to
current?
what we're trying to say here, which is how affordable is housing in Raymond
I think taking out
today?
that second part of the sentence makes it more clear. I think what we were trying to demonstrate with this bullet was that housing affordability is still very much an issue in Raymond, but there also are other housing issues like the lack of diversity, the fact that there's 97% of the housing stock is single-family homes. So I think with this, we're trying to hit at the variety of housing issues, but I can see how it would be misleading to read that and think, well, Raymond is pretty affordable compared to
Yeah.
other towns that,
To some.
like the median home in Raymond was, I think, around 400,000, and the median home in other towns is like over 800,000, which is a huge difference.
Absolutely. No, I agree
But
with
it's
that.
still not affordable.
I think if we're putting ourselves in chairs of the comp plan 10 years ago, or 10 years from now, we're trying to convey what type of information is important that led our goals to where they are now. And this bullet, I see it, I agree with you, Sam, and I think if we were to add something that indicates that this increase continues to remain, or this increase is still, we see this as still an affordability issue within the town, to qualify that even though, we can remove the 130%, but as long as we're qualifying that this is an issue that's leading to the affordability problem, then we should be conveying the information that we want to sustain that idea.
Other thoughts? Sounded good to me.
So we're trying, what you're after is making the point that it's increased a lot. And it's-
I guess what I was just seeing was the fact that there's nothing special in the real estate market about Raymond compared to
To
the
other
area or
towns.
communities.
Could we just put what the median home price actually is and then just say, it's increased from 400,000 to 700,000 between 2010 and 22, which we think is, roughly 75%. And then I think people could just judge from those statistics that it seems like a big change.
I think that's a good add.
I guess it doesn't really matter if we're comparing ourselves to other
Town.
towns close by. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the prices went up 75%.
That's
Like,
the main message.
yeah.
The only thing that, the second part of the sentence, the only thing that I was sticking out to me with that was, I see it as we have the potential to increase in our percentage over the next 10 years, meaning we may start to mirror those other towns as far as affordability
Yeah,
goes.
and just due to the fact that Raymond's home price is lower than surrounding towns, it seems like it would be more desirable for younger families to want to move here. But then with the increase and the pressure on the housing market, it's going to get, even more and more expensive.
Right.
There's a little box down here that's beeping.
Electronic birdie over there.
Do you know what this
It's like
is?
a battery
It's a
backup.
backup battery pack that's angry.
Is there something I could plug it in for?
Let me check.
Ask Kevin that question.
So how would the committee like to go with this one?
I like what John Clark had mentioned.
Yeah, we just define it a little bit more and take out the considerably lower.
Ooh, nice
thing.
job.
I didn't do that.
John, would you be willing to reprise one more time what you thought, that how this could be worded?
Yeah, I think we should just say, you know, Raymond's median home price in 2010 was X, you know, and in 2022 it's Y, and it's increased to 75%. And then we could probably just leave it at that. Because we calculated the 75%, so we should know what the two median prices are.
We can add that.
And is there consensus for the committee?
Yes.
With accepting John's edit? Is
Yep,
that good?
I think that's good.
All right, we will do that. All right, moving on, page 7, natural and water resources. So it states there are also several lake associations and volunteer organizations working to protect water quality. And there was an edit that just said, can we add after working in concert with municipal government?
Yeah, it's a fair
Good
statement.
ad.
It's true.
It's true.
And it's true.
Consensus is yes, we can add that.
Yeah.
So we just add to it, in concert with municipal government
Good.
to protect water quality. Page 7, public facilities, excuse me, and town capacity. It reads, as a small town where most town revenue is generated through property taxes, Raymond should work strategically to support residents while maintaining fiscal priorities. I guess the edit would be, after should, we add seek additional sources of revenue and work strategically. So
Better-
this is under public facilities and town capacity.
Yep.
Thoughts on that, on that addition?
The language here says Raymond must work.
Yes,
And-
I guess that was part of the edit as well.
Yeah, absolutely seeking alternative sources. I mean, grant funding and so forth is a key point, I think,
Sure.
of the plan.
Yeah, other than property taxes. In
Other
other
than
words,
alternative,
I
yeah.
don't believe anytime soon that's going to change as the major source of funding this town. It's going to be property taxes.
Yeah, right.
However, I believe when I listened to the former finance director speak at a select board meeting, that was one of the things she was asking for, to see if there are some ways that Raymond can do to explore other revenues other than property taxes. And I personally think it wouldn't hurt for us to say should seek additional revenues.
Absolutely.
Sources of revenue.
We were having that discussion about Tassel Top, because right now Tassel Top money is not going back into the town. We're funding it, but that revenue is not being seen by the town. That may change, I don't know where we left off with that, but that would be an example of an additional revenue.
Well,
Yeah.
So it plays into the impact fees conversations we've been having too.
Absolutely. Fees in general, impact fees directed specifically at growth areas, those sort of things.
Grant resources.
Grant
for
resources,
huge
absolutely.
Flow of money from
Sure.
the feds and the state.
Sure.
on Fixing up roads and watersheds and drainages and so forth.
We're talking government grants.
Government grants.
Government grants.
Yeah, so we need a government chaser.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Maybe instead of just saying revenue, we should say revenue and funding.
So seek additional sources of revenue and funding.
Yeah. Because grant money wouldn't necessarily be considered revenue. We
Right.
don't know.
It-
The one comment I would add to that is I wouldn't want this to sound like we don't currently do any of that,
Yeah.
because we certainly do
To
look for grant opportunities, look for other revenue opportunities.
To increase our capacity.
expand-
Sure.
To pursue those
Expand
opportunities
sources.
is the language we want.
Okay.
So, is it softer to say, should continue to seek additional sources of revenue?
But we really want to step that up a bit from our level of pursuit and success that we have now, would be my feeling. That, I mean, the
And I've just hired a finance director who has a background in grant writing.
Sue, is your mic muted?
So that's, oh, I'm sorry, I muted it when I called Kevin, I'm sorry. I just hired a finance director, she begins on August 26th, that has a background in grant writing.
excellent.
And had I not found someone like that, I would have been looking for a grant writer, because while it does say on here that the small but adequate staff, adequate's getting very stretched.
Well taken. All right, so consensus of the committee, how do you want to word this?
Okay, so I think it should say Raymond should expand efforts to seek additional sources of revenue and funding and work strategically to support residents.
I think what we're saying is exactly that they're doing it now, but they really need to give them the resources so they can step it up. I think the middle school coming back to the town is a perfect example of where we need someone looking for grants in order to
Make that happen.
make that happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just gonna be happen when somebody has 4 or 5 different jobs to do, and
Right.
one of them is part of that. I think there has to be some concentration, especially on that one.
Yeah.
Because there's got to be a lot of money out there that we could tap into in order to do what we wanna do in that school, and it might allow us to do even more than we think we can do,
We're adding,
i.e. swimming pool.
we're adding $1 trillion in debt every 6 months to this nation, and we're advocating to try to get more? How patriotic is that?
If it's available, it's already available,
You know,
and we're throwing our hat in the ring.
Yeah, I think, Greg, that'll be there, that'll continue, well, presumably continue to be there in some form or other, but it's really about increasing our capacity to be competitive, to chase and win some of those, because all of our neighboring towns, or not all, but a number of the neighboring towns do that and have a success rate that's, maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 30%, but it brings in money to help with public works and various funding categories that would be attractive to us. I don't think we'd be, if every town in the nation certainly pursued that path, it would drive up perhaps the federal deficit.
well, it's already driving up inflation, which is one of the problems we have in affordable housing and other things. I don't know, I think if the town can't afford to do it on our own, we don't
Don't do it.
beg for someone else to give us money. Sorry, that's what I think.
Oh, don't be sorry, Greg.
Yeah.
That's an opinion. What I'd say is just to redirect on this, just to focus on it for everyone, because I know everyone spent hours and hours pouring through not just this document, but also the action matrix. And I can tell you a lot of things, as you already know, that are addressed in that we're talking about as far as the wording in the plan, the draft plan. They're really addressed in the action policies and action matrix. So such things as hiring a grant writer as one of the suggestions, that's in there. That's going to be part of the plan. That's what the implementation committee's the job is to look at all of those things. Adequacy of staffing and everything. All of those things are addressed basically in the action policies matrix, which maybe if we get through this, we'll get time to look at as well, because that also needs editing. But we'll see how far we get. My goal is to be out of here in an hour and 5 minutes. Okay, so have I lost my way? Oh yeah, page 7, natural and water resources. This should be a quick one. Oh no, wait a minute, what did I do?
We're on page 8, Raymond.
I'm looking at the wrong document. Yeah, Raymond tomorrow, page 8. Growing traffic congestion along 302. On that line, a recommended edit would be to say, growing traffic congestion and safety issues along 302 and rural roadways. To me, it just seems that encompasses more of what we're hearing from the town, which is 302, yeah, it's a problem. But you know, North Raymond Road's a problem, and Raymond Hill Road's a problem, and Route 121's a problem. So the connecting roads as well, I just believe that wording would insert that in there. And also to say, it's not just traffic congestion issues, but it's also safety issues, which ties into the sidewalks and all of the other things we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So, comments?
I feel safer walking on 302 than I would any of these roads, that's for sure.
While we're on that sentence, I know this is more of just an editing thing.
Yes.
That the faces challenges including increased lakefront property development, but then we also in the same sentence say development pressure on natural resources, lakes and ponds. We've just said the same thing twice. So just make note to scrap one of those parts.
Which one would you suggest, Kayla?
Doesn't matter to me.
Coward.
I read it and
What
I
a
thought, and I
coward.
said, didn't I just read that?
Any preference from the committee as to which one of those we strike so that we don't appear redundant?
How about the first part?
Good for you,
The
Kayla.
second one's a little bit more descriptive.
All right.
Developmental pressure on natural resources, lakes and ponds. How about that? So-
I'm good with it.
All right.
Okay. All right, page 8. This is one that we should get real quick, right? I think we spent an inordinate amount of time discussing this at one of our committee meetings. So in the vision statement, that one line about the, you know, should it be all of the water bodies, which would include Nubble Pond and Notched Pond, or should we simply say all water bodies? Because I know we had that discussion, and yet it popped up here again in the vision statement. I believe part of the comment that drove us to change this was we actually heard from a resident from Nubble Pond. So what about Nubble Pond?
All two of them.
I think North Star might have had a comment on this too, that it's good to name we wanted to name and be descriptive of our
And I think
favorite natural
I thought
resources.
they had decided
Yeah.
that. So we'll just name all of the water bodies. I think that the wording was something, if you can find a draft of it, was all of the ponds, lakes were named individually, and then we said something like all other water bodies or connecting water bodies or something to that. But you know, we certainly could let North Star word craft that so it's correct. But we just want to name all the ponds that in lakes. Okay,
Is Pismire Mountain in Raymond?
some of it is.
Pismire,
Pismire is all in Raymond.
Is it all Raymond?
Is
Can we
it?
name that one as well? Because Rattlesnake is not all in Raymond
No,
either.
that's what I was
Not.
thinking of. Rattlesnake was not all in Raymond, but Pismire is.
Okay.
All right. Page 10, Goal 2, protect Raymond's natural and water resources. So the first question, and maybe John can answer this, or Greg, does the open space fund still exist?
I don't believe that might be a Sue question, but it hasn't been active since 2015 when we made a contribution to the purchase of the community forest. And it was Luneco had signed up for taking ownership of it. But so is it a line item still in the Raymond budget? Or is it in a kind of a inactive status? So I know we haven't been asking for money to put into it for the last decade or 8 years.
So was that a part of the CIP at one point? Maybe? I don't recall if I saw an open space line in this year's budget or if I've seen it in prior.
I think that's where it was when it,
I almost think it was, and I did look at and find that there are still monies carried along
Oh, great.
in the audit that for projects that have oh, how did they put it? Not become extinct, but abandoned or completed, is I believe how the statute puts it. And the select board decided to leave that money sitting in as basically undesignated in the CIP.
Does that mean it could be used, undesignated funds can be drawn for any purpose?
For any CIP purpose,
For any-
yes. Mhm.
So the action item is to secure that as a
I can-
land
and I can find
conservation
that
fund
information.
and not for other expenditures.
I think that'd be something for the new finance director to look at, maybe with the select board and budget finance committee.
At one time, the tree growth penalties were put in.
We're
that
being,
fund.
going into it, that's right.
I don't know if that's, was a one-time deal or if it's ongoing.
What a good idea.
Where do the tree growth penalties go
Land.
now?
Well,
That I
good
don't know.
idea.
Should go
But-
back to
That
the
I would have to look
taxpayers.
at.
Ah, well, good. Back to
Can't
the
let them have their
taxpayers and the
money.
value of the preserving. Well, anyway, okay. So I don't know. Do we want to keep the open fund in there if we're not sure of its existence? That'd be my comment. Okay.
Open space is still there.
Oh, it is.
And
Hooray.
it isn't an inactive one. That is one that has the select board decided to continue.
Nice.
And currently there is $28,707.
Loaded.
You make a note of that?
And what, tree growth, that I'm not sure. I don't know where that falls.
So I think we want to certainly keep it in the system, seeing that this plan, this comp plan has action items for reinvigorating.
Sure.
Or staying active in conservation.
Absolutely. So I guess it stays in. This is just a question, and either maybe John or Greg or Sue can answer this, but this is just my own question. Is Loon Echo the only not-for-profit land trust that Raymond deals with?
Maine Woodlands has one. The images at Fry's Leap.
Oh.
That's Maine Woodlands.
So-
Conservation easement.
So is it dangerous to just be saying Loon Echo in a couple of these statements as far as it would be Loon Echo that would continue to partner with Loon Echo Land Trust on easements and conservation opportunities? Or would it be, I don't know how you'd word that.
Greg, does
And
SWOM
others?
still exist? SWOM still
Yep,
exists? and
it's
they-
now Maine Woodlands.
That's Maine Woodlands?
Yeah.
And they can hold an
And
easement?
they also hold the deed restriction on the Hayden Murdoch property.
Okay. So I think just referring to Loon Echo Land Trust or other entities that are appropriate for the conservation project being considered would be the language that we'd want to use. What was the context of that? Is Loon Echo Land Trust the only not-for?
Continue to partner with
With
Loon
Loon
Echo
Echo
Land Trust on
and-
easement
and other
conservation.
land
And
trusts
other organizations.
and other
preserving
conservation organizations.
Open
or-
space.
Yeah,
And other conservation organizations, everybody happy with that?
yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Okay. Still on page 10, develop a process to rank the sites in Raymond most appropriate for solar development. And the edit was, and incorporate this criteria into Raymond's solar ordinance.
Makes sense.
Let's get specific with that.
Yep.
See what happens at the next special town meeting.
That's right. That's right. Could be a moot point.
It probably will be. I don't know.
You know.
But certainly, we're going to be dealing with other applications coming down the road for commercial solar
Yes, we are.
entities, and therefore, I don't think it's an issue that will be resolved or not, but simply by the ordinance change coming up. It's gonna more clearly define it, in my understanding. But that's about it. Okay. Still on page 10, continue to work with, simple edit, and support local organizations.
I'm good.
So I guess the idea of this edit is to keep reinforcing with everyone who cares to look that we need to be supporting local organizations.
Yeah.
Okay. Still on page 10, work with Cumberland County Soil and Water Conservation District. And the edit is, and the town's lake associations. So it would be including our town lake associations along with CCSWD. Any problems with that? No?
No, that's good.
Okay,
That's
we'll do
good.
that.
That's good.
Good edit.
Yep.
Pursue public access easements for swimming, fishing, and passive recreation and the edit is, all lakes, ponds, and water bodies through a collaborative process between municipal government and landowners. Once again, we're fostering that idea. There's got to continue to be collaboration.
Those specific ponds were called out because they currently don't have public access.
Yeah,
There are a few that do have public access.
okay. So if we wouldn't want to say all ponds and water bodies, I guess I would still say we want to do it through a collaborative process between municipal government and landowners. I think that, for me anyway, that kind of takes the sting out of any thoughts of eminent domain and the like. I mean, I know the process really to establish it is state inland fisheries, I believe,
Yeah.
as far as boat ramps and any of that stuff goes.
Yeah.
But as far as the town being able to, I don't know, say we've acquired a piece of property and we're going to donate it to the state, if in fact they want to put a boat launch here, increase access, that might be a strategy. I'm just suggesting some strategy. So I guess, yeah, if what we want to do is just highlight those two areas where we have public access, but then I would say include the collaborative process between municipal government and the landowners.
I do just want to bring this up. So I live on Raymond Pond. I did have my annual HOA meeting between our last meeting and this meeting, and it came to my attention that there was this public process maybe 10 or 15 years ago throughout Raymond, and you know, and this is kind of how it ended up, in that every other body of water except for these three have this general public access, and so that there was already a townwide thing that happened, and I guess, I don't know, people in my HOA are maybe a little close to it, but it was a very unpopular thing, I would say. And obviously they live there. It's a very small population. It wouldn't, they don't speak for the whole town, but from we're trying to implement certain things, and this was implemented townwide 10 to 15 years ago, is my understanding. And I don't know if anybody on the committee actually has better experience with what happened, but I think that might be something to consider before we put this in here, because, I guess the goal is to actually implement what we're putting in here. And I do just want to point that out.
Yeah, I think, John, if memory serves me, I recall there was an issue back around that time frame involving a piece of property that was coming up for sale that was on Panther Pond. And I believe there was if memory serves me, there was quite a pushback on the part of the Panther Pond Association and other individuals that had interest in Panther Pond that did not want to see that. So I don't know if what you're saying is that what you've heard is what came out of that was some sort of a deal where all the other, once we let's say granted access to Crescent Lake, that then we would not be looking to provide it or increase the amount of access through to the public to our other water bodies. I'm not aware of that, but
no, I think I'm saying something a little different, and obviously I wasn't here when this happened. I guess the story I heard was that there was a big push through inland fisheries and wildlife to get public access to every body of water in the town.
Sure.
And I think that, at least in Raymond Pond, what I heard was that there's no town-owned land. It's all privately owned. And so there was one of these, battles of, okay, well, where would we put this? And it's all private land. And so I guess I'm not sure if that's the same for Notch Pond or Nubble Pond, but um, all I'm saying is I think like what we're saying is try to pursue this public access easement. I guess what I'm saying is I think this was pursued about 10 to 15 years ago, and we ended up here, and it might just benefit us to figure out how we ended up here.
I think the main difference, or a difference, is both with maybe with the Raymond Pond experience and certainly with Panther, was that the scale of a public boat launch ramp is what it was, and the way this is worded here, it's not talking directly about a public boat launch ramp. It could be a hand carry access scale that would perhaps be more amenable to, for example, Raymond Pond. I think the way it's worded right now is pursue public access easements for swimming, fishing, and passive recreation at those ponds. I think Nubble is entirely surrounded by private property, so I don't know how far we get with that, but go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, so I think the question is, through this process, I think it was clear that people in Raymond want more access to these public resources that are in town.
Yep.
The question for this specific bullet point, and I'm sure it's later in the chapters about, those are the three that don't have any today.
Yeah.
Do we want to make that a point here to say we're prioritizing those three because there's no public access today, or to Peter's point, we need to work on access everywhere, noting that there are some ponds that don't have any access. If that's more, it's less specific, but I think it also would be true to the process. And
Yep.
Sam, you can weigh in, but I'm sure there are other bodies of water where there could be more access desired if it was available or there was an opportunity.
Or improved at least.
Right. Okay.
And just to be clear, I'm not advocating for a change. I'm more just bringing up that I thought what I learned kind of, fit in with this bullet point.
Well, yeah, Frank.
Yeah, say, if I remember correctly on Raymond Pond, there was a piece of land that
Came
was
up.
being considered for
Yeah.
a boat ramp, but the vast majority of people who live on Raymond Pond, who have property in Raymond Pond, did not want it at all. And it ended up that there was some influence in Augusta by individuals that ended up someone higher up in the state government told Fish and Game to forget about it.
There's a big difference between a boat ramp where you're bringing a boat with a motor
Yep.
that can make a wake and, especially on some of these smaller places.
Yeah, well, I don't think they
Versus
were looking
fishing
to
from the
bring,
shore or something.
100 horse
Yeah.
engines in the pond. I mean, I think people would have been appropriate to limit the amount of horsepower going into the pond and maybe even restrict it to, canoes and kayaks and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
like
it was just cut off.
I like Peter's edit because that considers everything that we've just been talking about, because it's got to be a collaborative process between the government, municipal government, and landowners. It's not eminent domain. It's, I think people in the town who
Collaborative process, yep.
who don't have access to the water
Yep.
want more access to the water, whether that's better access to Panther Pond or Raymond Pond. It doesn't really matter. The sites that we have are filled up in the summer, so
Yes.
it's hard to drive by and not be able to get there.
I think Peter's edit would
Do it.
just do it.
Yeah, I like
That
that.
means softens it.
Appropriately scaled. What you got in there is certainly isn't talking about boat ramps, because that's a hot button.
Sure. So if I understand it, what we would just say is pursue public access easements for swimming, fishing, and passive recreation at the areas that don't have public access now, and state those
I like all.
at
As
all.
opposed to pulling out those three. Because
Okay.
it incorporates those three but doesn't call them out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that good, everybody?
Yep.
And I would just say that, unfortunately, we're not taking any comments during this. There will be an opportunity at the end. But I guess what I just say is my understanding, though, is just to be clear with everyone, inland fisheries and the state, even to this day, are looking for every opportunity to establish public access on water bodies in Maine that do not have public access. So I would think part of this, incorporating this into the comprehensive plan, is the fact that that's what the state wants. That's what they want to see us moving towards.
Yeah, all they have to do is find a willing seller, and
That's it. That's the key.
And-
Someone that will sell it.
the
I have
process
a-
is. you
Got a
know,
question, maybe this is a John Rand question, but is there a weird conflict between us trying to maintain our water quality and us as a town trying to get all these different access into all these water bodies?
I think we can make a goal. I think that can be part of the goals, is to continue to maintain those, because I don't envision jet skis and pontoon boats on Raymond Pond, but my son would love to fish there.
Sure.
So,
So the key is access, right?
I think it's
what the
hard
access
to
is
feel
going to be.
invested in your community if you're not allowed to use it.
yeah,
And I think that if people see the beauty and feel the beauty and connect to the beauty, they're less likely to abuse the place that they live in.
or we can regulate it too.
We
you
can
know.
do that
Yeah.
through ordinance and just make it clear what access means on these bodies of water.
Yeah.
And-
Appropriately scaled. I
Yeah.
still like that language, which doesn't rule out a boat ramp, but it's certainly not specific enough for anyone to provide any real guidance, but it kind of incorporates the lessons learned from the Raymond Pond experience and the Panther Pond experience, which.
So does the committee have any issues with John with the appropriately scaled? We'll let North Star
Add that.
wordsmith that in there as well. Thank you.
May take forgery, forging, not forgery.
Okay. I keep losing my place here. All right, so page 12, goal 3, invest in road and traffic improvements. This is just probably straightforward. I've seen this comment or this description in other comprehensive plans that I've read, but none of them have adequately explained to me what is complete streets in Vision Zero policy.
I believe that is already defined in the transportation chapter, but I can double check to be sure.
If it is, could we just have a reference on this goal?
Yeah.
That's unreasonable for everyone?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Page 14, goal 5, strengthen Raymond's sense of community. And it's, the line is, explore the feasibility of a town-run daycare program. And the edit would simply be, explore the feasibility of a town-run or public-private daycare program. Thoughts?
Why? Why a town daycare? What's wrong with private ones?
We don't have enough childcare in the town, period. And if we've got more families coming in, we need it, and that's just critical. I think it's just overlooked pretty frequently.
Especially if it's taking away their school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you raise a point there as far as, one of the things that we asked for at the CompPlan survey was daycare. And although it certainly was on the lower end of votes, I believe that what this edit is saying is that either keep that option open. So as an example, if when the school comes back to the town, it may be that some space there with what would be considered to be reasonably low amount of renovation cost because it was a public school, might be relatively inexpensive to turn into a daycare center. And therefore, it would either be a revenue stream, we talked about new revenue, by leasing it to a private concern, that Raymond also has some amount of say over, or a public-private where it's something as simple as we can get you to decrease your expense and maybe pay your employees a living wage, and in return what we'll do is give you a big break on the lease. And that would be kind of a public-private type of a program.
The
Hey.
RSU is currently sort of doing this with pre-K program with one of our daycares here in Raymond.
Yep.
They sort of have a public-private relationship, and from what I hear, it's quite successful and
Yeah.
working out nicely.
So I guess I said it would just be opening the door to say, either way, we might be open to that, so.
And right now, we're exploring adding to our rec program, a before and after care program.
And all the programs that we have available right now have wait lists within 24 hours. It's like Taylor Swift tickets. So and then you're not guaranteed coverage, and it impacts parents' abilities to work. So I just see it as something that's going to get worse.
Are we okay with that edit? Just to add, or public-private? Good. Moving on. Still on page 14, I guess the edit was simply to say, why one event? Why not multiple community events throughout the year? Hold multiple. Good? That's an easy one. Page 16, future land use map. So, the first edit would be something on the map or in the narrative that simply says very clearly that this future land use map is not a zoning map. I personally think it's important to make that distinction. Number one, because the state requires that it not be a zoning map. And secondly, so that anyone looking at the plan doesn't get the sense that, oh, they've just changed the zone I'm in. It's not a zoning map, right? So I would ask that edit be included. Also on page 16, future land use map, there was an edit saying, are we going to have a separate map showing conservation lands? And if not, can we incorporate that into the future land use map?
Yeah, that should already be in the either natural resources or recreation.
So that would,
chapters.
there's a map in the chapters.
Yeah, that has all the conservation lands. Yeah.
Good,
Sufficient?
good.
All right, so we don't need any edit there. Still on page 16, expand the village growth area to the intersection of Route 85 and Plains Road and add critical rural area to the Tenny River corridor. That second one got my attention. We kind of missed that.
Yeah, we had talked about trying to focus on that intersection and improving the beach
At
and-
Crescent.
at Crescent, trying to slow down traffic, and the town owns some of that land across the street from it,
Yes, it
so
does.
seems appropriate to explore as some of that village type.
Makes sense.
So we'd like to see that added
Well-
on the future land use.
Yeah, I think that kind of, that little area between Crescent and Panther and Plains Road, you know, that whole little
Yeah,
intersection.
that's basically as I understand it, that's Tenny River.
Yeah,
And so that also be, I had the opportunity one hot July day to go down at kayaking with my daughter, and I gotta tell you, it's one of the jewels and
Yeah.
hidden secrets of
Special.
Raymond,
Yeah.
is going down from Crescent Lake to Panther Pond via the Tenny River. It's not
Really
an all-day
area.
expedition, but it's certainly beautiful between turtles and dragonflies and lilies. It's nice. So if we would add that to the critical area.
The preservation of that has to be top
That corridor.
priority for the.
Well, yeah, and we've had those conversations. A good portion of that property basically is Camp Hines and the Boy Scouts.
And they have an easement on some of their property. I think there's about 1,000 feet of of conservation along the Tenny River that the Scouts own, and New Echo holds that easement, I think.
And not relevant necessarily to this conversation, but we've had the conversation before, and I think it's mentioned further on in the plan and whatever, or in the appendix, that it's areas like that, that what happens when it gets to the point where the Boy Scouts say that their property has more value as real estate, waterfront real estate, than it does as a camp, or they go insolvent, or who knows what happens down the road, but that's for another conversation.
That applies to all
Well,
the
that's something
camps.
we should be
That's all,
looking at.
Yeah,
that's all the
all the
camps.
camps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Show up on that screen.
All right, and still on, no, I believe that was it for
Yeah.
page 16. We're getting to the end, folks.
Peter, if I could, before we move on,
Yes,
Sam zoomed in a little bit. I was hoping I could point it out. There you go. Yeah, use the pointer. Thank you. That's good. The Tenny River, I understand, is that connection between Crescent and Panther Pond, but at the same time there was a comment about extending the growth area toward Plains Road, which kind of crosses over the Tenny River, as I understand it. Like, are there specific properties that whoever made that comment, or like, does it go all the way down to the intersection? Does it include Camp Hines in a growth area, for example? Or is
there's-
it really just, going down to the Tenny River itself?
So there's a parcel, I believe it's 7 acres, that is right where Plains Road and 85 come together on that corner, on like this side of it. That's town-owned property,
Next to the cemetery.
next to the cemetery.
Yeah, yeah.
Where, they could look at putting parking for the ramp for the beach goers at Crescent.
Okay.
Or maybe there could be like a hand carry boat portage entry into the river. But that could possibly be used in some sort of way to help make improvements in that area. And, I wouldn't necessarily consider it growth, along that area, not the same way we would see it in the village there, but just slow traffic down, maybe sidewalks, maybe crosswalks, something that would make it safer for pedestrians to get, to the beach and park
Okay.
their car.
So I think that's very helpful to understand kind of what you're envisioning, and if that matches up with what other people are thinking. When we talk about the growth area, there's a narrative in the future land use section that talks about small scale multifamily, adding some commercial uses to kind of go with the civic uses that are already here. It's this part of town we're in. And I didn't know if that's the kind of thing you kind of envisioned kind of going down the hill toward Crescent, or if it was really maybe more about building up that kind of pedestrian, recreational
I think,
access kind of near the river and the lakes.
I'd like to think it's the latter, right?
Yeah.
And
that's
not
what I-
bringing the whole orange growth down to and beyond the river.
Okay.
Um,
So I did hear there was pretty clear consensus that river itself should be green. There should be a green connection between Crescent and Panther. But maybe with that extra explanation, we're not talking about a map change. We're not talking about changing that growth area boundary, but maybe just kind of saying within that critical rural, some appropriate uses that would make it safer for people to walk and access the resources would be appropriate.
Yeah, so improvements, not necessarily growth and development,
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a green connection along the river
Yep.
would be a helpful demarcation of however wide that is, because as Frank's point, special place, special river, special natural resource, and as I said, there's the town's got acreage on one side, there's Scouts have conservation on the other side. There's other conservation in the area. So
And maybe we could go way out on a limb and make the Tenny River blue.
Make it blue with green on the side.
No.
I'm getting
Like it?
wild
Oh, you're
now,
getting
I
crazy.
know.
We'll see. We'll see.
So,
All right.
are we okay with that?
Yes.
That good?
Yeah.
All right.
I got a quick comment, I'll just,
Yeah.
and I think you answered it, Sam, that there are other conservation properties are shown on another map in the plan.
Yeah, this map shows critical rural areas, so that's what the dark green is. But the map that's showing just conservation properties is already in the inventory chapter.
Okay, yeah. And what came to my mind was whether having, it would probably be too complicated, but having those existing conservation areas somehow portrayed or overlaid on this growth map. So that it's clear where we're proposing growth and where we're proposing rural. And that it's just making it clear how those are proposed land uses hopefully dovetail to some extent with existing conservation, like Morgan Meadow, which in this case is all green.
Yeah, we can definitely show those layers on this map as well.
Might get too complicated.
Yeah.
Helpful, but
We'll have to play with that a little
Yeah.
bit. I think we want to avoid making it
Too busy.
too. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Got
But
it.
do like a
it could be
dash line
helpful.
or something.
Okay, the last one that I have on my handout, but certainly not the last one for discussion for the committee. I captured as much as I could from the draft edits as they exist, but there may be other things that have occurred to people, so certainly I want you to chime in. Was page 28 summer survey. The respondents were mixed if the town should invest in infrastructure and facilities. Now, the edit that is suggested here is that the summer survey said that almost 2/3 of respondents support investing in town services and infrastructure, such as community center, even if taxes are likely to increase. And then the analysis goes on to say, nearly 58% of residents without children were in favor of investing in Raymond. That percentage jumped to 72% if the resident has school-aged children in their household. So I guess the edit is asking if this, characterizing this as mixed doesn't seem to jive with the results analysis of the summer survey. And to compound things, I kind of pulled up, just to refresh everyone's memory, how question 7 of the summer survey was posed to the citizens. And it says, the town of Raymond should, bullet point 1, keep taxes as low as possible, even if it means cutting services. And the second bullet point was, or question was, invest more in services like recreation, libraries, and infrastructure, even if taxes go up. Now, in reading this, I would say as a survey question, I would say that really, in order to be a little bit more equitable, there should be at least 4 questions here, right? So the option to the citizen on the first one was keep taxes as low as possible. Well, that should have been it. That's survey question number 1. Survey question number 2 would be keep taxes as low as possible, even if it means cutting services. And survey question number 3 should be invest more in services like recreation, libraries, and infrastructure. And then the 4th question should have been invest more in services like recreation, libraries, and infrastructure, even if taxes go up. So I think that the edit is really suggesting that the data we collected doesn't seem to jive with the analysis in the report, or the statement that the respondents were mixed. You know, as I read the data, number 1, we didn't ask all the right questions.
You can parse it out.
The pie chart in the analysis has 2, and one of them is low taxes, and the other one is invest in the town.
Yeah.
And so, but the question wasn't asked. Maybe a reasonable person would say, well, I want low taxes, but I do want you to invest in the town. So maybe what you gotta do is decide on what you're spending the money on and spend it on something else. I'm just saying, that could have been a question, the question could have been proposed in the survey a little differently. I'd ask North Star's feedback on that, their questions, the sense of how that's worded.
Are you asking how that last sentence should be worded?
Yeah, I guess, or you know, but my sense is this one, and this is my edit, so I'll take responsibility for it. The sense that I have in looking at this, and then having looked at the survey, and having looked at the survey questions and analysis of the survey questions, and then to read this, I got to tell you from my own personal experience and talking with people at elections and at associations and everything else, the consensus seems to be if there is going to be improvements that are needed in the town and services, then even if it means my taxes going up, I'm okay with it. But once again, that's not taking into account the survey results, which I believe that they don't disclose entirely what the pie charts and the graphs are saying. To support this statement, the respondents were mixed. And I don't think anything I've heard or anything I saw in the data says that it was mixed. It was saying people very clearly want to see, there's a consensus that they want to see investment in the town. You know, what we didn't ask is at an increase in taxes, or at the same amount of taxes, or less taxes. So I'm a little cautious as far as the wording of that. I will tell you, I have basically, when I've talked to groups and whatever, I've been saying basically that, you know, based on the data in our survey, people in town there's a consensus that, you know, if it's going to take more spending, which means more taxes, in order to get us more services and get at these other goals that we want, then it's okay with us. Not everybody, certainly.
I agree, Peter. The surveys we did, and all the pom-pom surveys that we did, that seemed to be the majority of the people were saying that.
And I think that's what the survey summary says in more detail, with that whole kind of document focused on the survey. I think this snippet, what I'm reading here is that maybe it needs to say, in general, there is support for investment in the community, even if it increases taxes. However, something like it wasn't universal, where respondents, you know, differed or had mixed opinions. You know, it was based on perhaps on how long they had lived in town. I think that was one of the variables that you could point to and say, you know, it would impact how willing they were, or willing to say they were supportive of investing in the town. But I think your bigger point about going back to that document and saying, you know, there's a couple pretty clear points that say, you know, there's generally good support across the board, but it's not universal. And I think that was maybe the word you used. I'll write that down, because there's not universal, it's strong but not universal support, and one of the variables is how long people lived in town, the tenure, how long have they lived in town.
How are we with that?
Is that
That's pretty good.
All right. I'd ask if there's other committee comments or edits on the draft one of the plan.
Thanks for putting this together.
Oh, sure.
I do have something.
Yes.
In here, you mentioned farms being the backbone of the economy. I don't know how many farms there are in Raymond. You mentioned, I gotta find the page it was on. Under economy, page 6. It's the last paragraph, the last sentence in the last paragraph, just above transportation. Natural based businesses and
Oh,
somebody has
Don't go
farms
too far.
that form the backbone.
Oh, mhm.
I don't, unfortunately, there's not much of a backbone of farms in Raymond.
Farmland.
There is farmland, and I think this kind of connects to that a little bit on page 23 where we talk about the rural areas. It says Raymond should also continue to support farm and forest landowners and expand
Yeah.
support for agricultural related businesses and agritourism, like on-farm restaurants. I might throw in there as well, like event venues or something along those lines. You know, barn weddings and things are all the rage these days too. So, you know, having people that can maintain some of those, you know, structures and support it in a way that they can run a business off of it, even if it's not related to farming necessarily.
Maybe just changing that to farmlands. Former farm properties or something. Because you're right, Greg. I mean, Chipman's not based in Raymond, and Hancock's over in Casco, and
I don't know, Larry Murch has a few cows, right?
he's got some.
You're always up the fair.
He certainly is. Yeah.
Doug Vance's cows are pet.
And he's got goats. And
So-
he may-
And he's got
Oh.
goats.
So as far as Greg's edit, how do we want to do that? Do we want to say, modify the fact that it's the backbone or one of the backbones of the economy?
Natural resource based.
The way I'm reading it is the recreation, outdoor, natural resource-based businesses are the backbone of Raymond's rural economy. Like it says, including summer camps, farms, timber operations as examples of rural businesses. I think if you think it's more accurate to say farmlands or, as John said, former farms, I think we can clarify that. I think the larger point is okay, and this is more of a clarification.
I wonder if you put that phrase in parentheses after businesses without a comma. If that would, because that makes it look like it's defining the businesses. Possibly, grammatically,
Okay.
maybe.
Parentheses.
How does the committee feel? You would let it stand, try and modify farms somehow, or eliminate it? What do you think?
I like the addition of farmland.
Farmlands?
I mean, it's not really a business, but it's a land use that is a significant contribution to the rural
We
nature
would
of Raymond.
support that.
Yeah, because I mean, we have to remember the beginning of the sentences, we also must support the following things.
You okay with that, Greg? Farmland?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Just one.
so be it. Any other?
I thought
Okay.
I thought it was a great document. You guys did a fantastic job pulling it together, and it was a.
I think there's so few
An
edits
easy read.
because
There's so-
it's
Good, yes, I
Yep.
agree.
Excellent.
Okay,
Good
so,
draft.
so there is a second component to this, which is basically the goals and the like. Due to the lateness of the hour, I'm gonna ask that through unanimous consent and without objection, we hold that off to the next meeting. Okay, and what I would encourage everyone to do is, as I've been doing, those documents are still available, they're open for edits. So I'd ask you to go in and look under that, and make as many edits as possible, and I believe North Star can then get started on that even before we have our next meeting. 'Cause I believe the next meeting, if I understood it correctly, is really to, Sam, it's to look at the second version of the plan? Is that?
Yeah, yes, so the goal is to have a second draft ready by next month.
Okay.
For the next.
All right, so that's what we'll be doing next month. I'd encourage everybody to get in there and make as many edits as possible prior to the next meeting. I know we all have busy lives, believe me, but it's not always easy to get the time to go through a document, especially detailed documents like this. But I think we've got a good start on it, and I appreciate North Star's effort as well. And if I didn't say it, I'll say it now. I think there's special recognition to Kayla Gonzalez as far as these pom-pom surveys are concerned. She has artistic talents, she's got organizational skills, and I'm a member of the fan club, so I just want to say, I think that needs special recognition. Done a great job. So, I do note that the couple that had a question that wanted to say something is left, but I'll open it up to any public comment now. If anybody wants to make a comment, an observation, anything like that, they're free to do so now. Seeing none, I'll close public comment, and I'd ask for comprehensive plan committee comments.
I have one.
Kayla?
I would like to thank all of the members of our comprehensive plan committee, because looking at this timeline of all the things we've done and it being pages, we're at it 2 years now. So congratulations for sticking with it for 2 years. And I think that the end is in sight.
Well, yes, I would agree with that. I guess my only committee comment would be this one. As I was reminded by the videographer tonight, and I had a conversation with the town manager as well, I would just like to remind everyone at committee meetings that public comment and selectman comment is basically designed to bring up future agenda items, and because obviously we have the ability, and the public has the ability to comment on any agenda item. They have the right to do that. But so public comment in with public comment and with even with committee comment, there's no back and forth. Okay, so there are no, well, this is what I think about your comment. No, that doesn't work that way. It's strictly to bring up future agenda items, or to make an observation or your comment yourself. Most of the time when I'm making a public comment, I really don't need any response. I've already made up my mind. I'm just telling you what I think. I just wanted to remind everybody on the committee that. I would also remind you that we did have a very good training in executive session on parliamentary procedure, basically the can-nots and cans of a public meeting, and I found it informative. I also found myself sitting there listening to the town attorney, and with the years that I've been active in committee, saying, oops, I did that wrong. So it's always a good refresher for anybody who has the opportunity of doing that. And the right to know laws, the public notice laws and the like are all helpful. Lastly, I would say, Sue, can you just remind the committee of the combined meeting we're going to have in this month with the select board?
That is on August 28th. It's going to be at 6:30 in the Jordan Small Middle School gym. And it'll be a workshop. Since the Comprehensive Plan Committee asked the Select Board to pull this together, it's the Select Board's meeting, but the whole agenda is to have a workshop to talk about the Comprehensive Plan.
And who's invited?
All committee members and all members. The public are welcome to attend, but since it's a workshop, the public's comments won't probably be entertained. But that's, and even with your comments before, the chair does have some leeway to explain things to public comments and
Absolutely.
whatnot.
And
It just shouldn't be a back and forth.
Right, so in a workshop, my understanding is generally what happens is there are no comments during the workshop and the discussion from the public.
That's correct.
However, the chair overseeing the meeting can allow comments after the general business is done.
Yes.
And it's just that, as you say, it's no back and forth. but the public can make.
Unless it's a clarification kind of something or something, yes.
The other boards that'll be there, planning board
Yes,
and zoning.
yes,
Budget finance.
budget finance,
Yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
one.
The comprehensive plan's been invited to.
yes.
Yes.
And,
The beautification committee, or at least a member of it.
Yep, all committees,
The
code enforcement.
recycling committee, they aren't active right now, but they are still a committee.
Code enforcement.
Code enforcement.
Another important.
Yeah, others, the department heads will be invited.
So I encourage you, even if you didn't get a chance to vote on the date you want, because the date was selected, there was a great Google poll that went out there that led us, and I believe we got 22 participants to agree on the same date.
Yes.
So of the 28 that responded to the poll, 22 agreed on the date. So we're gonna have that happen. I guess my question was North Star invited to this?
We've got it on our calendar just in case. We
I
were
think I sent the invite to you just
Yes.
in case you wanted to come.
yes. So I think that's a great idea. I know that the boards and committees have had a chance to weigh in early on in the process at the visioning stage and kind of weighing in on some early priorities. But it seems like this is like a really good chance now that we've got a rough draft, first draft, to kind of share where the direction of this work is going. So we are happy to be there and support that however we can. But I also think it's a good opportunity for this group to take that ownership and show that this isn't. We've helped, but this is not North Star's plan for Raymond. We've helped this committee draft a plan for Raymond. So to the extent, I don't know if it's going to be a little bit of a presentation on some of the highlights and the recommendations and kind of walking through the vision and priorities. We'd be happy to support that work or draft up a PowerPoint. And I know Kate and Sam have worked primarily through the chairs to do that kind of stuff. So whatever we can do, it may be worth a little more coordination between now and then, but it's on our calendars and we're happy to help.
Great, so hearing that, Kayla and I can work with you offline, off this meeting and see about doing that. That would, I believe, be extremely helpful. Yeah. I think along with that, I had talked with Sue about, I don't have a problem putting together some printed material, not necessarily from the draft plan, because I've been warned about releasing draft information. It's generally not a good idea. However, there is a wealth of information on the website. Survey analysis, survey data, and the like, which has been accessible to the public and to the leadership of the town and the committees forever. But quite honestly, as I said before, everybody lives busy lives, so everybody doesn't have a chance to leaf through a 20 or a 30-page document. So I told Sue I would pull some of those documents off the website, and she's agreed to get them printed and available for the meeting as well.
Yeah, since we'll be at the gym for size, because I sent the the invitation out to roughly 50 people, and that would be just a smidge cozy in here.
Yeah, agree.
But we don't have necessarily all the comforts of home at the gym for PowerPoint. I'll have to talk with Kevin about that.
Sure.
So it may be printed materials as opposed to PowerPoint. And I agree that.
You mean like this?
Yeah, something
Well,
like that.
we could
Well, we
have-
couldn't, we could mimeograph it all.
Well, we could just have a PowerPoint presentation that's printed out.
Yes, oh, yes. Yeah, we could still use PowerPoint as the basis. It just couldn't be projected, I don't think. I'll have to talk with Kevin. But I completely agree that the draft document isn't ready for prime time, and I don't think you want to release it until you're ready for it. The committee deserves and ought to have first crack at it. But some kind of synopsis, as we talked about, some of the data, some of the pieces, so that you have enough for people to at least be thinking about it before they get in there, hopefully, so that you're not starting just from what is a comp plan.
Sure. And I would agree as well as far as the withholding draft information and stuff like that. What we want to do is we want to build this document as close to perfect as possible, because people will find problems with it and errors in it. And what we need is the community to buy into this and accept it. And just like North Star is saying that it's not their plan, they've helped. What has to be clear, and I think it's gone on since the beginning of this committee, it's not the committee's plan either. Right, all we've done is been a vessel to collect information and work with a consultant in putting into some sort of a format that is acceptable to the state, and that a reasonable person in the town would read and say, yeah, that reflects basically what I'm thinking for the next 10 to 20 years. So, but it's not our plan. Okay, if there's no more comments?
Just a quick question on the 28th. So it's structured as a workshop. We're going to
Workshop.
show up. Are the chairs running it?
The
or-
select board's
Select
running
board's
their
running
chair.
it. Okay. Okay, great.
But, well, the select board will open the meeting, we'll open the
Okay.
workshop,
All right.
and we'll probably say, it's yours, is the way I expect it to go.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if they just turn it over to us, then do we have a plan as to what we start saying next?
Well, along with the discussion I had with Sue, along with getting
Like song and dance
printed
or
material and
something.
stuff like that
Yeah.
available, if we can't have a PowerPoint, then what I suggested to Sue is that Kayla and I get together, and what we do is put together an outline.
Okay.
Once we have an outline, we would certainly disseminate it to the committee as well, so you kind of have an idea of what documents we're going to provide and where we're going as far as the discussion. And like I say, I don't believe this group is actually going to need to start off with what is a comprehensive plan.
Right.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, but so certainly, my goal is to get into making all of the committees, the department heads, and any public interested in the fact that we're really coming down to the wire. We've got a draft plan. This is, as an example, some of the data on the website that reflects the polling and the surveying that we've done based on what are the major issues or interests of the community and what the consensus was there. Provide some maps once again to maybe. I'm looking forward to trying to dispel some of this idea about. I think Jackie brought it up a while ago that a growth area doesn't necessarily mean an industrial park and 12-foot high condominiums. That a growth area means investment, and where we should be directing our interest as far in our dollars. But that's that perception. I've met a lot of people out there that really that's their sense. That's what a growth area is. Don't put that growth area on my property. I don't want that. So it'd be that sort of thing.
If there's a role for any of us to play, just let us know in advance.
Absolutely. Well,
Okay.
what I'll do is try and get together with Kayla in the coming week, put together an outline, and also a list of documents we'd like pulled off the website, and I will send all that out to the committee as soon as we have that finalized. So you can even refresh your own memories by going to the website and reading some of the stuff.
Great.
It's great reading, All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? We're done. Thank you.